All right, welcome back. This is going to be part 67. 67 in our journey through my presentation on the flood and Noah's Ark. And as you can see, I got myself a haircut last night. Sandra, my wife, took a wall clipper that we have and shaved my head down good. She did a good job too. Did a real good job. Nice crisp lines and shaved the back of my neck too. Oh man, it felt real good, especially when you get in the shower. Get in the shower right after you get a haircut like this feels great. But as she was shaving my head outside, I could feel the wind. As the wind was blowing, I could feel it touching my scalp. It was just wild. But yeah, I'm getting ready for the summer months, guys, and I'm not sure I'll let it grow back out again. I may just keep it like this permanently. It's so much easier and cheaper too. It's a whole lot cheaper too, and saves me money. And but I like simple, simple. Give me the simple life. And so, but this right here definitely is going to make it easier and more simpler this summer. And but at any rate, we're going to continue on with the topic of fossil graveyards. And if you'll notice on the screen here, we are going to be headed up to the North Slope in Alaska. The North Slope in Alaska, where that red dot is. See that red dot over to the far left top? That's where we're headed. Now, this area, the North Slope, is 1,500 miles from the North Pole. And so now this is key. This is key here. Now, I'm going to tell you why here in just a little bit. But notice where this is at. You're inside the Arctic Circle here. And the Earth having, I believe, the 23-degree tilt that it has, toward the summer, it has 1 month of continued sunlight, which that would be good for plants. But away from the sun in winter, it has 6 weeks of continued darkness. Now that's not good for plants. With extreme temperatures of minus 60 degrees, and average is minus 15. So that is definitely not good for plants. But other than that, we are going to go, we're going to be headed over to two sites, Lixcomb and Kikak-Tigoseek sites. Now, if you'll see that little red circle there, that's where we're going to be headed to. Now, if you notice, go over to the right of that, and you'll see where I put frozen forest found. That's Prudhoe Bay, frozen forest found. And they have found, guys, some forests in the earth that are still in a frozen state. Now, the earth before the flood was much, much different than it is now. And so now there's little debates on, did the plants actually grow there, or were they transported there by the flood waters? That's open to debate, but the world definitely was different than it is now. You can't look at the landscape of the planet and think that's what it was like before the flood, because it wasn't. Everything was different. The Bible talks about how the world that then was perished. It was completely destroyed. And so there was a lot of things about the pre-flood world. You'll often hear it referred to as antediluvian, that pre-flood world, than it is now. Whole lot different than it is now. And so people were living longer. Animals and plants grew much bigger than they do today. It was the atmosphere. There was more oxygen. There was things that they had in the pre-flood world that we don't have now. And so, but we can see the effects and the aftermath of the flood. It's all over the planet. On every on every continent of the globe, there is evidence that something catastrophic hit this planet. And so it depends on your worldview, though, on exactly what it is. Now, going on, the Lipscomb bone bed, we are going, if you can see that circle there, that's where we're headed to, that area there, I guess you could say. And then you got the Kikak-Tigoseek site, 300-foot cliff, and you see that circle there, that's what we're going to be looking at. Now, they found 8 different types of dinosaurs that were found. Now, all these dinosaurs, guys, were what they found. And you can see the names of them down there. I'm not even going to try to pronounce these things, but excuse me, that's what was there. And these were some pretty good sized animals too. Now, the narrator says 70 million years ago. So now this is a NOVA program. So this is going to be an evolutionary side, a uniformitarian side. Um, uh, 70 million years ago, something happened. Now, the something happened. You see that? Something happened that deposited the bodies of more than a dozen massive animals in this one spot. Now, of course, us creationists, we're going to say that something didn't happen 70 million years ago. It happened about 4,500 years ago, called the biblical flood, the historical biblical flood. That's what happened that deposited those animals there. Now, going on, Anthony Fiorillo, Museum of Nature and Science, this is what he said. This is the most diverse assemblage of fossil dinosaur bones here on the North Slope. It's got a variety of kinds of animals. It's got a tremendous bone density. There's an abundance here like I've never would have believed. Going on, Dr. Ron Tikoski, this is what he says. It's as if someone took 15 Pachyrhinosaurus and dumped them in a blender for 30 seconds and then poured all the mess out into a large batch of concrete and let them solidify for 70 million years. Everything is completely jumbled about. Bones are oriented in all sorts of different directions, and nothing is connected. Now, a Pachyrhinosaurus is what this right here is. That's what a Pachyrhinosaurus is. At 18 feet, 4 tons, and there were 15 of them, guys. 15 of them in the grave, in this one area here. Now, what they believe is they believe that these animals died in a log jam type of animals. Like you got all this. This is a mass drowning of wildebeest. Look at them all there, guys. Now, what they believe is that these Pachyrhinosaurus were going across a river and they got overtaken. They got overtaken, and then each one of them drowned and created a log jam like those wildebeest did. And that's how this one site was deposited. That's what they're stating. That is the uniformitarian version of it. And so now the creationist or the Bible believer has a different version of the flood, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But let's see what they're saying about this. He says, again, I'm highlighting the areas that is really key when you look at this. Dump them in a blender for 30 seconds and then pour out all the mess. Everything is completely jumbled about. Bones are oriented in all sorts of different directions, and nothing is connected. So when you go back to that log jam, even though that's a mess, and if these guys were the rot and stuff like that, they're still going to be sort of, still together. Their bones and stuff, they're going to be what you call articulated. What he's talking about in that one paragraph is disarticulated. And so, but there's more of a violent action there. But even with that stated, even if all these animals were still articulated where their bones were together, it still would show that the flood overtook these animals all at once. Again, you've got two different worldviews here is what we're talking about. You got the creation with the biblical worldview, and then you got the evolution, which is the uniformitarian worldview. Now, the pre-flood world, right at the time of the flood, these animals were taken all of a sudden. Just, the waters came, scooped them up, and then you had what was called log mats or big mats, like we were talking about the plants, the trees. When you have all these trees together, you have these huge big log mats that are floating on the waters, well, you'd have animals like that too. Sometimes they're intermixed with the plant material, but these animals would get all tossed around, and because of the water, would cause these animals would decompose even faster than if they were just laying on the ground. It would cause them to fall apart. Because they're getting tossed around and limbs would get ripped up and stuff like that. But all these animals would get deposited in one area all at once. That fits so easy with the biblical flood. But again, it depends on your worldview. It really does. How are you looking at it? Are you looking at it with the biblical worldview or the secular worldview? Where it's over millions of years and stuff. And so these animals were deposited millions of years ago, what they said about 70 million years ago. Some type of catastrophe took place. They couldn't tell you. They just said something happened. Something happened. That's all we can say. When we talk about the Bible, we know what happened. We know what happened. It's a flood. The flood happened about 4,500 years ago. It's just as simple as that. It depends on what your view is. And so I recently had a discussion with a gentleman who stated, I'm assuming it's a guy, that stated that he was a geologist and a paleontologist. And I when we were having a discussion back and forth, and he didn't seem to think it was such a big deal about the worldview part. It means everything. It means everything. Having a different worldview changes the way you look at the evidence, because there are, you got your uniformitarian scientists who use uniformitarian theories to look at the world and sediments and stuff like that, fossils and what have you. They take God out of the equation. So they got to come up with something to explain what they're looking at here. They got to come up with something. What happened? So they look at it in a uniformitarian way and try to bring up long ages of time. How did we get here? How did humans get here? If that's the case, if God's out of it, we had to came about somehow or another. So we had to come by chance. How did we get? We just came up. They got to come up with something because they just took God out. So we're here. We're here. Now, when you got a creationist view, now there's scientists that are creationists. So the scientists that are creationists were like, no big deal. God made us. God made us, and they look at the evidence through the Bible. And it makes a whole lot more sense because they go, okay, well, something happened to these animals. Now, the biblical worldview scientists look at the world, and they look at the evidence, they look at the fossils, and they go, wow, something happened. Well, it says in the Bible about 4,500 years ago, there was a flood. There you go. That's it. Yeah, we can see that. And then they can look at other parts of the world, of the globe, on other continents, and see catastrophic things. Oh, yeah, that was the flood. They got an answer for it. It's easy. How did we get here? How did we get here? Well, it says in the Bible that God created us. Yeah, okay. Well, you can see DNA. Oh, it's like a software system. Well, God created us. There was an intelligent force that created us. Well, you got the uniformitarian view, and you took God out. Well, how did that come about? Well, I don't know. We came from something. But I bet we just must have just evolved, just come up from maybe a lower life form, and here we are today. But there's no evidence of it. There's no evidence of it. But when you look at it with the creation worldview, a biblical worldview, you can say yes, we were created, because we can look even in our DNA. It looks like a software system, and even evolutionists will say that it's like a software system. The intricate details of it. It was designed. It was as if it was designed. And so, well, that makes sense because the Bible said that God created us. You see how it makes sense when you look at it with the biblical worldview? When you take God out, you're on your own. It's a mystery. It's a mystery. And that's what I want you guys to look at every time we look at these fossil graveyards, is because if you look at it with a uniformitarian or an evolutionary worldview, you're going to have to make up something. Oh, millions of years ago, something happened, as if they said, something happened. But if you look at it with a biblical worldview, you can say, oh, wow, oh, that's no problem. Man, the flood really took care of that area, or really did a number on those animals. You can see that. That this is all over the globe, all over the globe. We're not talking about one little area. We're talking about a huge, and some of these graveyards, guys, are huge, covering miles and miles and miles. And so, but at any rate, we'll stop right there. You guys take care. I hope the Lord bless you real good, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.